Hello, my name is Mark Deary and I'm a filmmaker, and I'm currently working on a documentary called Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker. And it's going to be great when it happens. Little by little I'm going to chip away at it. I have a plan for the next 100 days. I'm going to make 100 videos on YouTube. So this is the 7th video, so first week done. And today I thought I'd try something that I haven't tried before, which is I thought I'd talk about gear. Now, I'm not hardcore into gear. It's funny, my wife might say differently. And I feel like 20 years of being in the industry. I shot my first feature film in 2005, if you've never seen any of my videos before. Like I said, this is the 7th video. I'm going to do a video every day for the next, for 100 days. And so you can go back and see what I talked about in the other videos. I've talked about a bunch of different topics. But today I thought I'd just, it's funny because this morning we're doing a bit of spring cleaning and I realised that this old camera bag was under my son's bed. I feel bad for him that he doesn't have the space because my old bag is taking up the space. But yeah, it's funny, like, working on the documentary, because the documentary Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker is about 20 years of being a filmmaker. And I guess anybody who looked at me would probably say I'm a failed filmmaker because I have, even though I've made a bunch of feature films and I made a lot of money, you know, making TV ads and corporate videos, and I've spent the last decade as a teacher, so I had 11 years working in film and then 10, almost 11 years as a teacher. But you know, is success as a filmmaker having a household name and making movies people go see at the theatre? Maybe it is. So I guess in that instance, failed. Anyway, I'll talk more about that another day. But today I thought it'd be really interesting to, someone's looking at me, no mate. I thought it'd be really interesting to, oh, it's a wedding procession. Oh, that's really exciting. That's great. I thought it'd be really interesting to look at some gear. This was the first camera I bought for filming on. Now, it's funny because our first two feature films, I say our, that's my wife and I. She was my girlfriend when we started making movies together, but we're now married. And our very first film, and the second one, we borrowed equipment. So because we had access to equipment, we'd written a script. People were like, oh, we believe in this script. We'll give you gear. So we borrowed equipment and had those first two shoots. And then, no, that's not true. Because when did we get it? We'd done 4 shoots actually. So the first 2 feature films, then when I was doing my master's degree, I did it for the free access to equipment. So I got free access to equipment, and it was worth far more money than if I'd done a rental because I had, 2 years access to free equipment. So that was the main reason for doing my master's degree in film. I didn't really care about the learning so much as I did about meeting people and having free equipment without having to beg because I was entitled to it, as a student. And so after that, 4 feature films later, I finally bought my first camera with my own money, and it was nothing special. There's a post. I've written about this post a lot online, but all those traces are probably gone now in old forums and stuff back when I was, in my 20s and a lot more active than I am now that I'm 43 years old. But the first thing I bought with my own money was this. This is probably the totally wrong aspect to set up this video, but this is what I'm doing, so we're doing it from here. Maybe if you're interested in gear, I can do a close-up video some other time in a studio or whatever. It's a Canon HV20, and I just noticed all the paint's come off the HDV symbol right here. But this was a consumer camcorder, very old school, ran on mini DV tapes. The tapes go in here, and but the reason it was so amazing was that it had a clean HDMI out signal, so you could go out to a clean HDMI and use a monitor, and you could record out of the HDMI. But because it recorded to 1080p video internally, its killer feature was it had manual control over your exposure. So you could lock your exposure. Most handycams at the time, they were designed to be just automatic. So like, you'd point it at something and the exposure would set automatically, focus would set automatically. Whereas this camera, you could manually set your exposure. So in the middle of a take, the exposure wouldn't get worse or better. And I bought it 100% on the recommendation of Stu Maswich. So if you don't know who that is, he wrote a book in about 2006 called The DV Rebels Guide. The DV Rebels Guide. Phenomenal book. Probably top 3 books ever on filmmaking, in my opinion, that I've ever read at least. I'd first been speaking to him on a forum before the book was even released. On his forum, it was called the DV Rebel Cafe. It's long gone from the internet. Unfortunately, that was my all-time favorite forum. And yeah, he wrote a post, which is still online, so you can Google it, and I'll put it in the description, called Taming the Toy. And that came after this. First, he'd been talking about this camera, and people were talking about it because it could do HD, and HD at the time was like, Robert Rodriguez was talking about HD because he'd moved from film to HD around 2006 to do Spy Kids 2, and obviously George Lucas had moved to HD, and they were all calling it HD. That was the word. So I guess that was why this having HD, so 1920 by 1080, even though it was over a 50i, it was interlaced, so it was progressive scan. It wasn't progressive scan, it was interlaced. But you could still get a 1080p signal out of this camera. And we used this for our feature film called The Least Damnedest Thing, which was released in 2010. But originally I got it just as the camera. I was just going to get the camera like this. This was all I was going to use. And we started working on another film, which I don't consider one of the films we did. I say I did 5 when we finished 3 out of the 5, but this was a 6th. I mean, there's probably 12 others. I don't know. We wrote a lot, and Candice wrote more than me, but together we wrote some, and we made the ones we wanted to see on the video store shelf. I've talked about this in other videos, so I won't talk about it again now. But this camera I was just going to shoot, and it was portable, which I love, and we could shoot anytime we wanted, which I love. And the movie was called In My Car, and I've always still wanted to do it. I talked about big magic and letting go of ideas, and that's an idea I just need to let go of. Somebody else has probably done it now anyway. Actually, Joel Haver, one of his 12 feature films, what's it called? I think it was called The Hero's Journey, that he did in 2024. It was about a guy named Caleb living in his car because he didn't want to be with his parents and stuff. And that's, let's just say that's the idea being taken away. Our In My Car was a totally different thing, but I'm just going to say the universe took it. Talking about big magic, like I said, I talked about it in another video. So we were just going to film it on this, put in a mini DV tape. I think I did chuck a tape in here so I can show you what they look like. It's funny, having been a teacher for 11 years, I've definitely, a lot of students don't even know what it is. These were the tapes that you recorded on. I don't know how well you can see this. When I pull this down, there's actual tape in this. This says Oklahoma on it. I must have filmed the play. My mate Shane McLennan is a theatre director, and we were best mates in high school, or very good mates in high school, and over the years we stayed in touch. And he directed this play, Oklahoma, and we reconnected right when I first got this camera. That year, it was 2008, was the year I got married. And so I filmed this play for him, Oklahoma. It's random, I just pulled this out. I've been ripping old tapes. Because I'm getting ready to do the documentary, Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker. So this was the tape that I grabbed. I just grabbed any old tape so I could show you what a mini DV tape looks like. It just goes in the camera like this. There's no battery in the camera right now, so it's not going to pop out, but it'll pop out. You go, it makes a sound that I love, that sound. Put in the tape, close it up, ready to record or play that. So, yeah, but at the same time as this, so you got to remember, there was a lot happening. There'd been the DVX camera and the Panasonic DVX 100, which was just an incredible camera. Stu Maswich talks about that in the Rebel Cafe. It was a great camera. It made anybody be able to own a camera and make high quality looking footage, but it was standard definition. And at the same time, Sony had like the PD150 and the VX2000, and if you're young, don't even worry about these names. You don't want these cameras, they're not that great. And they had like the XL2, that was another camera that was big, but it was standard def, and then they brought out I don't know what the HD version of it was, but that was the kind of more fancy one that they were probably using to shoot porn or something. Because, they could afford a slightly better camera than normal filmmakers who could afford this or VX2000. Anyway, so these cameras that existed, but the HD ones started coming out. At the same time, there's a company called RedRock Micro, and they released this thing called the M2 adapter. And it changed the game because it would let you put photography lenses onto a camera like this, so you could get shallow depth of field, and you could get the bokeh of a beautiful lens rather than the digital sharpness of this kind of lens. So that was when Stu Maswich wrote the post called Taming the Toy, and that changed my life, that post, because he had bought one and I'd seen other people buying them. And right now, you would probably know the filmmaker Gareth Edwards. So around the same time, he was in this same scene as well. He started in visual effects. He was working at the BBC and wanted to be in directing, and he wasn't getting the directing jobs he wanted. So I think he'd worked on like Attila the Hun or something, but he was just like, that's it. I want to go make my own thing. So he didn't use this. He used the, I think he used the DVX, the Panasonic DVX 200, which was the, or was it the HVX it might have been called. The DVX was the standard def. He used the HVX 200. We used to just call them the Panasonic P2. And in my early days working in advertising, we shot a lot of jobs on the Panasonic P2, the HVX 200, or the 200B, I can't remember. There was also the HMC 150, that was another camera people used on the back of these, but we used, because we were poor, Candice and I, we used the HV20 on the back of this. And I used it on some ad shoots and stuff as well. This was the case I bought to house it. I bought some other stuff as well. This was the matte box, the RedRock Micro matte box. And I also had a follow focus and a bunch of other stuff, but this was the system. This is the M2. And one day maybe I will do a close up so you can see the footage, but to see footage from this on my YouTube channel, which has existed 16 years and I've only just started making videos for, I think all the videos that were on there previously, no, maybe not. There's an early Doritos spec spot called All You Could Want, and it was shortlisted in a competition, the Doritos competition. and it was shot on this exact setup with Zeiss lenses on the front and this HV20 on the back, like this. So it kind of sat like this. This fed into this. I won't set it up now, but kind of was like this. And we had the matte box to stop the sun. And you just turn it on. It's got a spinning piece of ground glass. So yeah, Gareth Edwards, who, in case you don't know who Gareth Edwards is, he directed Star Wars Rogue One and Godzilla and a bunch of high-profile movies. He just did the most recent Jurassic World movie that was released in 2025. Jurassic, what was it called? I can't even remember now. But it was pretty good. It was definitely better than Dominion for me. But yeah, he directed the new Jurassic World movie. And so, he went on to have a great career. And his first film that he shot, which was, I'm pretty sure, no, he used the Sony, I think, the Sony EX1. And on the front, and then he used a Lettuce Ultimate adapter. He didn't use the RedRock Micro M2, he used the Lettuce Ultimate. And then he used one, I think, Nikon 50mm 1.4 AIS or AIF lens, I don't know, like a manual aperture, manual focus lens. That one lens, and he went over to like South America, or Venezuela maybe, or Mexico or something, I can't remember exactly. And he made a film called Monsters. And the film did really well, and off the back of that he went on to have his career, which is super, super exciting. So we shot our feature film on this called The Least Damnedest Thing. We shot it in 2009, and we released it in April of 2010. And off the back of that, I had work. So that's when I kind of moved away from making films and started taking money, which, do I regret it? I don't know. I mean, it was validating because all of a sudden people were paying me money for my work, and it was thanks to the lens adapters and the look I got in those films, in The Least Damnedest Thing and that Doritos commercial and some other things I shot. Yeah, that's what got me my early career, in the industry, I guess, but more the advertising industry than the film industry. But yeah, I have the HV20 to thank and the RedRock Micro M2 to thank, and the Least Damnedest Thing. I just love how it looks. I still love how the spinning ground glass, how it renders an image. Still now, I feel like even this camera that I'm shooting on, which is a very fancy camera, even it, like, I still don't love how new cameras, they're so clinical and sharp. This is an Arri Alexa XT that I'm filming on right now because it's the camera I have. I feel like such a crazy person that I'm filming these lame YouTube videos of me on this camera, but it's the only camera I have. And I have this HV20, which I just showed you. The only other camera I own right now is this one. This is the Panasonic GH1, and I thought I'd show you this as well. So this is not a gear review because this gear is also old. So it came out in 2008. And that's why I thought this was just an interesting thing to talk about. And anyone who's kind of my age, I'm 43, and was around at that time, that 2007, 8, 9. But even from 2002, I was shooting on standard definition. My first feature film was standard definition. We shot that on a Sony, wasn't a PD150, but some sort of Sony mini DV camera. And then the second film we shot on a Canon mini DV camera, like a prosumer, not prosumer, a consumer handycam like this. It was called One Night When the Stars Were Bright, the second feature. Just a little camera like this by Canon. And I can't remember the model number, MP something maybe. And then, yeah, then we went. I shot a film on a JVC Digital S camera. That was my third feature. Curtis and the Missing TV. That was shot on a massive broadcast camera, a Digital S broadcast camera by JVC. But we piped the signal out of it. We didn't record to Digital S tapes. We piped the signal out and into the little camcorder that I shot my second feature on. And then yeah, then there was a Fuji camera that did HD. Which I can't remember what it was, but I shot a couple things up, but not any films. But then we got the HV20 and shot on the M2, and in that, within a couple of months of purchasing the M2 and the HV20, the Canon 5D Mark II got announced. And I'd been researching lenses a lot to go on the lens adapter. And so all of a sudden, lenses prices like doubled overnight. And I was like, why is this happening? It's because video makers were starting to buy 5D Mark II. Philip Bloom, who you might know, he was a famous blogger at the time, and he had previously worked at the BBC as a director of photography, and he had made a review of it, and it just exploded. Vincent Lafort as well at the same time, or Lafort, I don't know how to say his last name. He made a short film on it, and it became really huge. And so everyone was talking about the 5D Mark II. And very soon afterwards, this camera came out, the Panasonic GH1. I bought this like maybe January, February 2010. So these things were still hot items in 2010. 2009, word got out, I think. Maybe it was 2009 that the 5D Mark II was released. So this was 2008. 2009, HD footage in a DSLR camera, a large sensor camera. And then I think the first one to do it was the Nikon D90, which we had one of at my work. And then the 5D Mark II came out, which was full frame, not super 35mm frame. This was slightly smaller again. This was a micro 4/3 frame. But this camera was mind-blowing, and then it got hacked. And we actually ended up using this on a bunch of corporate jobs. We used it on a campaign for Australia Post here in Australia, like the postal service in Australia, like USPS, but Australia. We shot a campaign for them on it. And I think they were like, that's a really small camera, is that what we're using? We're like, oh no, and we had our other camera set up, you know, because I think they were like, you can't shoot an ad on this. But the ad was glorious, you know. And we shot a ton of ads, and I earned the money back on it because I rented it to the place where I worked. So I was like, oh my God, how are you getting those results? And I was like, because I just shot a test of my friend Daz's band, The Good Ship. And I shot a music video for them. I just shot one of their gigs, and they're like, oh my God, that footage is incredible, you know. So it was amazing. And once it was hacked, it was even better again because the data rate was so high. So I always kept it. And I got a job running a company, running a franchise of a company in Brisbane. They were based out of the Gold Coast in late 2010. And we were doing a lot of real estate stuff. So it was kind of a requirement that we all had 5D Mark IIs. And I made a lot of money off my 5D Mark II. But I always kept this as well. I shot Formula 1 and F1 with this. I used the slow motion because the 5D Mark II couldn't do slow motion, but this could. So I shot some slow motion at F1 in the Gold Coast, and I still have a bunch of footage I shot at F1 with this, and some stills. But the 5D Mark II was just so much better. And then the 7D came out, and it could do slow motion, but it was Super 35. So this kind of just got forgotten. But I always kept it, and I think this is more of a toy, really. I'd say taming the toy for this, but this doesn't need to be tamed. You just chuck a lens on and get beautiful footage. So there's another ad from I think around 2009 or 10. That was a third or fourth video on my YouTube channel before I started doing these videos for 7 days. And it has a video shot on this, another Doritos spec spot that we did a year later or 2 years later. 1 year later, so we did one in 2009, we released another one in 2010. So the second one called Dance for Doritos, that was shot on this camera, just straight with a Zeiss lens on the front. And I made another movie with my friends, which I think is private, maybe I'll make it public so you can see it. But I had this into the lens adapter as a test to see if the footage looks smoother, but it was a little soft because I was on this through a Zeiss lens, which was an old lens. I was using old contact Zeiss lenses through the lens adapter through another Zeiss lens, so it's very milky footage. So I'll share that too. That was called Spring, and it used music that my friend Giovanna had written when she was 10 and her kids were about 10. So it was a beautiful film. It was never meant to be shared with the public, but yeah, I'll share that video on my YouTube channel too so you can see it. So GH1, blast from the past. I've never sold it, but I've sold my 5D Mark II. I've owned many cameras since then. And as I said, I'm shooting these YouTube videos on an Arri Alexa, which is so heavy and so unwieldy and so unnecessary for these videos. But hopefully you're enjoying the way they look because they're being shot on a glorious camera that should be being used on Hollywood feature films, not on this. But it's the only camera I own apart from this. So if I ever make a video about the Arri Alexa, I'll have to shoot it on this because it's all I've got. I also have an iPhone, so I could probably shoot it on my iPhone. But yeah, I just can't get rid of this camera. I just love it. I love how it looks. I love how it feels in the hand. I still love the image. I've shot images, we have them on the wall in my house, of each of my kids when they were 6 months old, and they're just beautiful photos. I love this camera. So GH1, beautiful camera. You'd probably get it for 50 bucks on eBay now. HV20 you probably can't even buy on eBay because they're probably all dead. The motor in them is probably broken, but this was a great old camera. Anyway, I hope that was a fun blast from the past. I'm not a gear guy. I don't see myself ever doing gear reviews or anything. I just care about stories. So. But who knows? Never say never. Maybe I'll end up making gear reviews if that's what everyone wants. But yeah, that was fun. I don't know. I talk about gear instead of creative process or about ideas. So I don't know what I'll talk about in my next video, but this was day 7. Tomorrow's day 8. So I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you'll be back too. And I'll see what we talk about then. But in the meantime, thanks for sitting through it. If you sat through the whole video, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. I'm doing this for 100 days, so there's, 93 more videos to come, or after this one, 92 more videos to come. So, yeah, come on the journey with me, come on the journey, and I'm going to have my documentary finished by the end of the 100 days, I hope. Feature-length documentary just about what I've done, this sort of stuff for the last 20 years, and then I'm going to start making movies, man. I'm going to make another feature, I'm going to make short films. I've got a lot of things planned. Who knows how it's going to play out, but come along with me, subscribe. If you like this video, like, and I'm still so awkward on camera, and I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun too. I'll see you in the next one. Take my bag with me. Let's go.